The ultimatum, the assembly hall falls silent. The grand assembly hall of the Galactic Convergence stretched across 3 kilometers of polished crystalline floor, its domed ceiling displaying a perfect holographic replica of the galaxy itself. Commander Victoria Grant stood at the human delegation platform, her military uniform crisp and formal, watching as representatives from 247 species filled their assigned sections. The air hummed with translation fields, converting thousands of languages into comprehensible thought streams that every delegate could understand, regardless of their species' communication method. Victoria had dreamed of this moment for years. Humanity's official recognition ceremony was supposed to happen today. 30 years of diplomatic efforts, technological exchanges, and cultural integration had led to this historic occasion. Earth's children were finally being welcomed into the greater galactic family. But the ceremony had been interrupted before it could begin. An unexpected visitor. The Krath Empire's war fleet had arrived in orbit around the Convergence Station just hours before the ceremony. Their massive dreadnoughts cast shadows across the station's viewing ports, each vessel larger than Earth's largest city. The Krath were an ancient species, their empire spanning 400 star systems, their military might unquestioned for the past millennium. They resembled towering insects, their chitinous armor gleaming black and gold, multiple limbs ending in blade-sharp appendages that could slice through steel. High Commander Zekthor of the Krath stood at the central speaking platform now, his translator collar converting his clicking mandibles into clear, cold words. The Krath Empire formally challenges humanity's admission to the Convergence. We invoke ancient right of territorial dispute. The 17 colony worlds humans have established fall within traditional Krath expansion zones. We demand immediate evacuation of all human settlements and surrender of those systems to rightful Krath authority. Victoria's jaw tightened. Those 17 colonies represented humanity's greatest achievement. 6 billion humans had left Earth over 3 decades, building new homes on distant worlds. They had followed every convergence protocol, filed every territorial claim through proper channels, and received approval for each settlement. Now the Krath were simply ignoring all of that. The Council's cold response Chancellor Morathan, the Convergence's highest authority, floated in his containment sphere at the head of the assembly. His species, the Veltari, existed as clouds of luminescent gas, their thoughts translated through quantum resonance. His voice carried the weight of 10,000 years of galactic law. The Krath claim is acknowledged. However, we must hear humanity's response to these allegations. Victoria activated her platform, rising on an anti-gravity field to address the full assembly. The 17 worlds in question were surveyed and claimed according to all convergence protocols. The Krath Empire filed no objection during the mandatory review periods. They registered no territorial markers in those systems. Their claim appears only now, conveniently after humanity has invested 3 decades and trillions of credits developing those worlds. Zekthor's mandibles clacked, with what Victoria had learned was the Krath equivalent of laughter. Primitive humans do not understand the scope of galactic timekeeping. The Krath have held those territories for 2,000 years. Your 30-year occupation is meaningless, a blink in time. You are children playing with toys that belong to their elders. Several species in the assembly made sounds of agreement. Victoria felt her stomach sink as she realized the truth. The Convergence operated on timescales that made human history seem like a brief footnote. To species that lived for centuries and empires that endured for millennia, humanity's 3 decades of space colonization was nothing. A daughter's fear Victoria's communication implant vibrated with an incoming priority message. She glanced at the text overlay in her vision. It was from her daughter, Sarah, who lived on New Terra, one of the disputed colonies. Mom, there are Krath ships in orbit. They're broadcasting warnings. Are we really going to have to leave? This is our home. Victoria's hands clenched at her sides. Sarah was 23 years old, born on New Terra. She had never even seen Earth. That colony was her home, the only world she knew. 50 million humans just like Sarah lived across those 17 worlds. They had built cities, farms, schools, and hospitals. They had planted trees and raised children and created entire civilizations on planets that had been lifeless rocks. The vote that changed everything. Chancellor Morathan's voice resonated through the hall. The Convergence Council will now deliberate on this matter. All species may cast votes on whether to support the Krath claim or recognize human sovereignty over the disputed territories. Victoria waited as the voting process began. Each species consulted their internal delegations, discussed the implications, and cast their decisions. The holographic galaxy above the assembly floor began lighting up with colors. Blue indicated support for humanity. Red indicated support for the Krath. Gray indicated abstention. The votes came in rapidly. Red after red after red. Victoria watched her hopes crumble as species after species sided with the ancient Krath Empire. Some votes came from fear, she knew. The Krath military could devastate any species that opposed them. Some votes came from politics, old alliances, and ancient debts being honored. Some votes came from simple prejudice. Humanity was new, unknown, and therefore untrustworthy. When the final tally appeared, Victoria felt the weight of it like a physical blow. 209 species voted for the Krath, 11 voted for humanity, 27 abstained. Chancellor Morathan's voice was emotionless. The convergence recognizes the Krath Empire's territorial claim. Humanity will evacuate all 17 disputed colony worlds within 90 standard days. Failure to comply will result in revocation of humanity's provisional convergence membership and potential military enforcement action. The private meeting Victoria requested an emergency private session with Chancellor Morathan, invoking her right as a provisional member species. The Chancellor granted her request, though his tone suggested it was merely a courtesy. They met in a small chamber off the main assembly hall, just the two of them and their security details. Chancellor, this is a death sentence for human expansion, Victoria said, keeping her voice steady despite the rage building inside her. We followed every rule. We did everything right. And now you're allowing the Krath to simply take what we've built because they're older and stronger. The gas cloud that was Morathan pulsed with colors Victoria's translator interpreted as regret. Commander Grant, I understand your frustration. But galactic law is complex. The Krath's claim has historical precedent. Their empire did survey those systems 2 millennia ago, even if they did not actively occupy them. In galactic terms, your presence there is very recent. So might makes right, Victoria challenged. The strong can take from the weak and the convergence will simply watch? The convergence maintains peace through recognition of established order, Morathan replied. The Krath Empire is a stabilizing force in this region of space. Conflict with them over 17 relatively insignificant worlds would destabilize the entire sector. I am sorry, Commander, but the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. Victoria stood silent for a long moment, processing this reality. The convergence wasn't a family. It wasn't a union of equals. It was a hierarchy, and humanity sat at the bottom. The rules protected those who already had power. They did nothing for those still trying to earn their place. The journey home. The flight back to Earth took 6 days through faster-than-light transit. Victoria spent most of that time in her quarters, reviewing files and preparing her report. She also spent time reading messages from the colonies. Millions of humans were preparing to abandon their homes, packing up their lives, saying goodbye to worlds they loved. Some messages were angry. Some were heartbroken. Some were defiant. One message came from a retired general named Marcus Webb who lived on New Terra. Commander Grant, I served in the Unification Wars 40 years ago. I've seen what humans can do when we're cornered. Don't let these aliens bully us into submission. There are options. Dark options, but options nonetheless. Earth needs to remember what we were before we tried to become what the galaxy wanted. Victoria archived that message separately. She had a feeling it would be important soon. Earth's Command Center. The United Defense Command headquarters sat buried 3 kilometers beneath the Swiss Alps. Built during Earth's turbulent unification period when nuclear war had seemed inevitable. Now it served as the nerve center for humanity's entire space presence. Victoria arrived to find the council chamber already filled. President Chen sat at the head of the table, his face showing the strain of the past week. Military commanders, intelligence directors, colonial administrators, and scientific advisors occupied the other seats. Commander Grant, President Chen greeted her. We've reviewed your preliminary reports. The convergence has abandoned us. Worse than abandoned us, sir, Victoria replied, taking her seat. They've endorsed our subjugation. The Krath aren't just claiming those 17 worlds. Intelligence reports indicate they're planning to demand even more concessions. once we comply with this first ultimatum. They see humanity as weak, as easy prey. Admiral Rodriguez, Earth's highest-ranking military officer, leaned forward. How long until they demand Earth itself? The question hung in the air like a blade. Victoria had asked herself the same thing during her journey home. Unknown, Admiral, but based on Krath historical patterns, I'd estimate within 5 years. They expand through incremental conquest, testing resistance, then pressing harder wherever they find weakness. The secret project director, James Hartley of Advanced Weapons Research, stood and activated a holographic display. Then perhaps it's time we discuss Project Nightfall. Victoria had heard rumors about Nightfall but never been briefed on the details. The display showed schematics for weapon systems unlike anything she had seen before. Railguns that could punch through starship armor like paper, plasma torpedoes with yields that made nuclear weapons look like firecrackers, stealth technology that could hide entire fleets from sensors, and something else, something the schematic labeled simply as Cascade Protocol. What am I looking at? Victoria asked. Hartley's expression was grim. Insurance. When humanity joined the Convergence, we agreed to limit our military development. We signed treaties promising not to research certain technologies, not to build certain weapon systems. We kept those promises officially. Unofficially, we knew that the galaxy was dangerous. We knew that eventually someone would test us, so we prepared. President Chen spoke up. Project Nightfall has been running in secret for 25 years. Hidden research facilities, black budget funding, compartmentalized teams. We've developed every weapon system the Convergence forbids and a few they never imagined. The question before us now is whether we use them. The impossible choice. Victoria looked around the table, seeing the weight of this decision on every face. If we use these weapons, we'll be violating every treaty we signed. The Convergence will expel us, possibly declare us a rogue species. We'll be alone against the entire galaxy. We're already alone, Admiral Rodriguez countered. The Convergence vote proved that. They'll stand aside and watch us be destroyed rather than challenge the Krath. At least if we fight on our own terms with our own weapons. Colonial Administrator Peterson added, 6 billion people on those 17 worlds are counting on us. If we surrender, we're telling them their homes, their dreams, their futures don't matter. We're teaching our children that humanity bows to bullies. President Chen looked directly at Victoria. Commander Grant, you've spent more time with the Convergence than anyone. You understand their politics, their mindset. I'm asking you directly. If we fight, what happens? Victoria considered her answer carefully. Everything she had worked for, every relationship she had built with alien species, every hope she had for humanity's peaceful integration into galactic civilization, it would all burn. But she thought about Sarah on New Terra, about those 50 million colonists, about the message from General Webb. She thought about what humanity had always been, beneath the diplomatic veneer they had worn for 3 decades. If we fight, sir, the galaxy will see us as dangerous, as threats to their precious order. They'll fear us. Some will hate us. But they'll also respect us. They'll learn that humanity cannot be pushed, and maybe, just maybe, other young species watching this will learn that the Convergence's rules can be challenged. President Chen nodded slowly. Then we fight. Admiral Rodriguez, activate all Nightfall assets. Director Hartley, begin weapons distribution to the Colonial Defense Forces. Commander Grant, I have one more assignment for you. Sir, the Krath and the Convergence need to understand what they've unleashed. They think we're weak because we've been playing by their rules. They're about to learn what humans are when the rules no longer protect us. I want you to deliver a message to the galaxy. One final broadcast before the shooting starts. Victoria felt a chill run through her. What kind of message, Mr. President? Chen's expression hardened into something ancient and cold. A warning. Show them our history. Show them what humans do when we're cornered. Show them why Earth is called a Deathworld. The Krath wanted war. Now they're going to learn what that word really means when humanity speaks it. Preparing the broadcast, Victoria spent the next 48 hours working with a team of historians, psychologists, and communications experts. They compiled footage from Earth's entire violent history, wars that had killed millions, weapons that could end civilization, conflicts that had lasted generations. They showed human resilience, human adaptation, human refusal to surrender even in the face of impossible odds. But they also showed something else. They showed why humans fought, not for conquest or glory, but for survival, for protection of their loved ones, for the future of their children. They showed that human violence wasn't mindless aggression but calculated, strategic, and devastatingly effective when necessary. The broadcast would be transmitted on every frequency, through every communication channel. The convergence couldn't block it. The technology was too widespread. Every species in the galaxy would receive it simultaneously. They would all hear Earth's final message before the war began. Victoria recorded her portion last, standing alone in the broadcast chamber, the camera focusing on her face. She wore her uniform, but she had removed all the diplomatic medals and peace ribbons. She looked exactly like what she was, a soldier preparing for war. "This is Commander Victoria Grant of Earth," she began, her voice steady and clear. "This message is for the Krath Empire, for the Convergence Council, and for every species watching. You asked us to surrender. You demanded we abandon our homes, our futures, our dignity. You believed we would comply because we are young, because we are new, because you are ancient and powerful." She paused, letting the silence stretch. "You were wrong. The broadcast was ready. In 6 hours it would transmit across the galaxy. In 6 hours there would be no going back. Humanity would become the enemy of the established order, the rebels against galactic peace. But they would be free rebels, unbroken rebels, dangerous rebels." Victoria looked at the camera one final time, thinking about Sarah on New Terra, about all the humans across 17 worlds preparing to defend their homes. She thought about Earth's bloody history, about every generation that had fought against impossible odds and somehow survived. "Steel yourselves," she whispered to the galaxy. "You wanted war. Now face what follows." The recording ended. The die was cast. Humanity's final broadcast would soon reach the stars, and nothing would ever be the same again. The message, the broadcast begins. The transmission launched at exactly 0600 Universal Standard Time, punching through every communication network in the galaxy simultaneously. On the Convergence station, alarms blared as technicians realized they couldn't stop it. Humanity's signal was hijacking every relay, every satellite, every communication device. It was technologically impressive and completely illegal. Victoria's face appeared on screens across 247 homeworlds. Behind her, Earth rotated slowly, its blue oceans and green continents visible through wispy white clouds. She stood motionless, her expression carved from stone, her eyes carrying a weight that made even alien species feel uncomfortable. "This message is for the Krath Empire, for the Convergence Council, and for every species watching," Victoria said. Her voice transmitted in 247 languages simultaneously. "You asked us to surrender. You demanded we abandon our homes, our futures, our dignity. You believed we would comply because we are young, because we are new, because you are ancient and powerful." The pause stretched for 3 heartbeats. "You were wrong." A history. Written in blood. The image behind Victoria changed. Earth disappeared, replaced by historical footage that made the watching galaxy recoil. Ancient humans wearing animal skins fought with stone weapons. Blood splattered across primitive battlefields. Bodies fell in numbers that seemed impossible for such a primitive species. "Humanity evolved on what you call a Class 12 Deathworld," Victoria continued, her voice maintaining its steady cadence. "Earth tried to kill us from the moment we became aware. Ice ages froze our ancestors. Plagues decimated our populations. Predators hunted us. Volcanoes buried our civilizations. Earthquakes shattered our cities. We should have died 1,000,000 times over." The footage changed rapidly, showing humanity's climb through the ages, Bronze Age armies clashing with thousands dying in single battles. Medieval sieges where humans starved rather than surrender. Gunpowder weapons mowing down charging soldiers. The Industrial Revolution bringing mechanized warfare that killed on scales previously unimaginable. "But we didn't die," Victoria said. "We adapted. We learned. We became the most dangerous thing Earth ever produced, not because we were strong, but because we refused to quit. Every setback taught us lessons. Every defeat showed us weaknesses to fix. Every victory was analyzed to extract maximum knowledge." The wars that shaped humanity. The footage shifted to World War I, trenches filled with mud, blood, and bodies. Poison gas drifting across battlefields. Artillery barrages that turned landscapes into moonscapes. Young men charging into machine gun fire because orders demanded it. Across the galaxy, species that had not experienced warfare in millennia watched in horror. The Veltari, beings of pure thought who considered violence a primitive memory, withdrew from their viewing screens. The Pakthor, a species that had eliminated conflict through genetic modification 8,000 years ago, transmitted urgent requests for the broadcast to be blocked. But the broadcast continued, relentless as humanity itself. "You study our history and call us barbaric," Victoria said. "You're correct. We are barbaric by your standards, but you misunderstand what that means. Our barbarism isn't ignorance. It's experience. It's 10,000 years of learning how to survive in conditions that would have exterminated any of you." World War II filled the screens, massive tank battles across European plains, naval warfare spanning entire oceans, strategic bombing campaigns that turned cities into rubble, and then, the ultimate weapon, mushroom clouds rising over Japanese cities, showcasing humanity's willingness to use planet-killing technology to end a war. The Deathworld perspective, Victoria's voice took on a harder edge. "You evolved on peaceful worlds. Your ancestors developed agriculture in stable climates. Your predators were manageable. Your diseases were controllable. You had the luxury of evolving past violence naturally, over millions of years of peace and prosperity." The image behind her changed to show footage from Earth's natural world. Volcanic eruptions, tsunamis, earthquakes, hurricanes, meteor impacts, a planet that seemed actively hostile to life. "Earth gave us no such luxury," Victoria continued. "We developed agriculture while fighting droughts, floods, and blights that killed millions. We built civilizations in earthquake zones because we had nowhere else to go. We survived plagues that killed half our population and came back stronger. We live on a world that has tried to exterminate us repeatedly, and we love it anyway because it's home." The footage shifted to show human space exploration, the first satellites, the moon landing, Mars colonies, the construction of generation ships. But interwoven with this progress were military developments. Rocket technology born from missile programs, nuclear power derived from weapons research, computer systems developed to calculate ballistic trajectories. "Every tool we created served dual purposes," Victoria explained. "We learned to turn everything into a weapon, or learned from weapons how to build everything else. It's not because we're violent by nature. It's because on Earth you innovate or you die. There is no third option." The hidden arsenal. The image behind Victoria changed dramatically. Earth disappeared, replaced by detailed schematics of weapon systems. Railguns with magnetic acceleration chambers, plasma generation cores, energy shields that could deflect particle beams, stealth systems that bent light and sensor radiation around vessels. Across the galaxy, military analysts sat up straighter. These weren't theoretical designs. These were functional systems, and many of them violated convergence weapons treaties. "When humanity joined the convergence, we signed your peace treaties," Victoria said. "We agreed to limit our military development. We promised not to research certain technologies, and officially we kept those promises." She paused, and for the first time something like a cold smile touched her lips. "Officially." The schematics multiplied, filling the screen, thousands of designs. Weapons humanity had built in secret while the convergence watched and saw nothing. Underground facilities on Earth, hidden research stations in asteroid belts, laboratories disguised as mining operations. 25 years of covert development. "We knew this day would come," Victoria continued. "We've studied galactic history. We understand how your civilization works. The strong dominate. The weak serve. Ancient empires like the Krath take what they want, and younger species either submit or are crushed. You call it stability. We call it tyranny." The true revelation. The image shifted again, showing Earth's orbital space. What had appeared to be standard commercial satellites suddenly revealed their true nature. Weapons platforms, hundreds of them, disguised as peaceful infrastructure. The moon's far side, supposedly dedicated to scientific research, displayed massive railgun installations and missile batteries. Mars, humanity's second colony, showed underground manufacturing complexes that had been producing warships for a decade. The asteroid belt contained hidden shipyards where vessels were constructed inside hollowed-out rocks, invisible to standard sensors. "You wonder how we hid this from convergence inspections," Victoria said. "The answer is simple. You sent inspectors who had not conducted real intelligence operations in thousands of years. Species that had forgotten what deception looks like. You were searching for violations of your laws, but you had forgotten that laws only work when both sides respect them." The footage showed the activation sequence of humanity's hidden fleet. Ships powering up inside asteroid bases, stealth vessels decloaking in deep space, defense platforms coming online across 17 colonial systems. The scale was staggering. Humanity had built not just a few secret weapons, but an entire parallel military force. Chancellor Morathan, watching from the Convergence station, felt something he had not experienced in 3 centuries of life. Genuine shock. The humans had been playing them from the beginning. The philosophy of human warfare. Victoria's expression softened slightly, though her eyes remained hard. You need to understand something about humanity. We don't want war. Every conflict in our history has cost us dearly. We remember the dead. We mourn the losses. We carry the trauma across generations. The footage behind her showed the aftermath of battles. Medics treating wounded soldiers. Refugees fleeing destroyed cities. Memorial walls covered with names of the fallen. Cemetery after cemetery, the price humanity paid for its survival. But not wanting war doesn't mean we're unprepared for it, Victoria continued, her voice taking on a tone that made listeners across the galaxy feel a primal unease. It means when we fight to win. Completely, permanently. We learned long ago that half measures only lead to more death. When humanity goes to war, we commit everything. We accept no outcome except victory. The screen filled with strategic diagrams, attack patterns, defense formations, tactical doctrines developed over thousands of years of human conflict, and then something that made military analysts across the galaxy freeze in recognition. Game theory matrices showing optimal strategies for total war. You have 10,000 warships. High Commander Zekthor, Victoria said, addressing the Krath directly. You believe numbers ensure victory. You're operating from a playbook that has won you control of 400 systems. But that playbook was written for fighting species that had forgotten how to wage real war. The Krath's growing concern on the Krath home world. High Commander Zekthor watched the broadcast with his senior staff. His mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of agitation. This is primitive posturing. Psychological warfare. They're trying to frighten us with images and speeches. But his chief intelligence officer, a Krath female named Sektara, was reviewing data feeds with increasing alarm. Commander, we're detecting energy signatures from human colonial systems. They're activating defense networks we never knew existed. Our preliminary scans show weapon yields that exceed convergence treaty limitations by factors of 10 or more. Impossible, Zekthor snapped. We've monitored their development. We know their capabilities. Apparently we don't, Sektara replied quietly. Commander, I recommend we delay the invasion fleet. We need better intelligence before we commit forces. Zekthor's pride warred with his tactical sense. The Krath had already announced their intention to enforce the territorial claim by military action if necessary. To hesitate now would be seen as weakness. But the human female's broadcast was unsettling in ways he couldn't quite articulate. The warning becomes clear. Victoria's tone shifted again, becoming almost conversational. Let me tell you about a concept from human military history. We call it mutually assured destruction. It was a doctrine from our nuclear age. The principle was simple. If you attack us with weapons that can destroy our civilization, we will respond with weapons that can destroy yours. Even if you win, you lose. Neither side survives. The image behind her showed nuclear arsenals, thousands of warheads, delivery systems that could reach anywhere on Earth within minutes, submarine-based missiles that could launch even after a nation was destroyed. The ultimate deterrent. We abandoned that doctrine when we joined the Convergence, Victoria continued. We dismantled most of our nuclear weapons. We accepted your assurances that the rule of law would protect us. We trusted that civilization meant something more than who had the biggest guns. Her expression hardened into something ancient and implacable. That trust has been broken. So now we return to what we know works. If the Krath Empire attacks our colonies, we will defend them with every weapon at our disposal. If you destroy our worlds, we will destroy yours. If you exterminate our people, we will ensure your empire falls with us. You will win nothing but ashes. The Cascade Protocol. The screen behind Victoria displayed something new, a schematic labeled Cascade Protocol, though the technical details were redacted. What was visible showed a chain reaction system, something that could spread exponentially once initiated. This is humanity's final insurance policy, Victoria said softly. We call it Cascade Protocol. The details are classified, but I'll tell you what you need to know. It's a weapon system we hope never to use, Once activated, it cannot be stopped. It spreads through targeted systems, rendering them uninhabitable, not through radiation or biological agents, but through something far more permanent. She let that sink in before continuing. If Earth falls, Cascade activates automatically. If our 17 colonial worlds are destroyed, Cascade activates. If humanity is pushed to extinction, we're taking our enemies with us. That's not a threat, High Commander Zekthor. It's a promise. Across the galaxy, the military implications hit like a shockwave. The humans had built a doomsday device. They had violated the most sacred principle of the convergence, the prohibition against weapons that could render worlds permanently dead. And they were openly admitting it. The choice laid bare. Victoria's voice dropped to something quiet but infinitely more dangerous. So here's what happens next. The Krath Empire has 3 options. Option 1. Withdraw your claim to our 17 worlds and negotiate a peaceful settlement. We're still willing to talk, to find a compromise that respects both our interests. The image behind her showed diplomatic envoys, conference tables, the machinery of peaceful negotiation. Option 2. Proceed with your invasion and face humanity in total war. You'll win eventually. Your numbers are superior. But we'll make you pay for every meter of ground with blood and fire. We'll destroy your fleets, devastate your colonies, and ensure your empire remembers the price of conquering humanity for the next 1,000 years. The image shifted to simulated battle scenarios. Human ships fighting with savage efficiency, Krath vessels burning, colonies under bombardment, the cost of war displayed in stark detail. Option 3. Try to destroy Earth itself, thinking that will end the resistance. Cascade protocol activates and both our species die screaming. Your 400 worlds become tomb worlds. Ours do too. The convergence can explain to their citizens how their rules of non-intervention led to the greatest catastrophe in galactic history. The screen went black, leaving only Victoria's face visible. The final words. I want to be clear, Victoria said, her voice returning to that steady, unwavering tone. Humanity doesn't want this war. We came to the stars hoping to find cooperation, friendship, shared growth. We've spent 30 years trying to be good galactic citizens. We followed your rules, respected your customs, and hoped that would earn us a place among you. Her eyes seemed to look directly through the screen at every viewer, simultaneously, but we're also the species that survived, Earth. We're the ones who crawled up from death, world conditions, and built civilization anyway. We're the species that split the atom, walked on our moon, and reached the stars through sheer stubborn determination. And we learned long ago that hoping for peace while preparing for war is the only way to survive. The image behind her changed one final time. Earth appeared again, but now surrounded by the revealed military installations, the hidden fleets, the orbital weapons platforms. A beautiful blue world protected by terrible power. So steel yourselves, Krath Empire. Steel yourselves, Convergence Council. Steel yourselves, Galaxy. You wanted war. You demanded humanity bow or fight. We've made our choice. Now face what follows. Victoria's image held steady for 3 more seconds, then the transmission ended. The sudden silence across the galaxy was deafening. The aftermath on the Convergence station, Chancellor Morathan floated in his chamber, processing what he had just witnessed. The humans had violated dozens of treaties, revealed weapons that should not exist, and threatened the entire established order. By all rights, they should be declared rogue and hunted down, but his species had survived 10,000 years by being wise, not just lawful, and wisdom told him that the humans had just changed the equation. They weren't helpless victims to be pushed around. They were dangerous survivors who would burn the galaxy rather than submit. On the Krath homeworld, High Commander Zekthor faced a choice he had never expected to make. His empire had conquered 400 systems through overwhelming force, but none of those conquests had threatened to cost the Krath everything. None of those species had possessed weapons that could render the Krath homeworld uninhabitable. Across human space, 17 colonial worlds received the broadcast and erupted in celebration. Their military forces activated, their defense platforms came online, and 6 billion humans prepared to fight for their homes. On Earth, Victoria Grant stood in the broadcast chamber, feeling the weight of what she had done. She had delivered humanity's ultimatum to the galaxy. She had revealed secrets that would change interstellar politics forever. She had potentially started a war that could kill billions, but she had also given humanity a chance to stand tall. A chance to prove they belonged in the galaxy not as servants but as equals. A chance to show that youth and strength didn't make a species inferior, just different. Her communication implant vibrated. A message from Sarah on Newterra. "Mom, we just watched your broadcast. Everyone here is ready. If the Krath come, we'll show them what humans can do. We're not leaving our home. Thank you for standing up for us." Victoria closed her eyes, feeling tears threaten for the first time since this crisis began. "You're welcome, baby," she whispered. "You're welcome." In the depths of space, the Krath invasion fleet continued its advance toward human territory. But now High Commander Zekthor had ordered a halt at the neutral zone boundary. He needed time to think, to assess, to decide if conquering 17 human worlds was worth potentially losing 400 Krath worlds. The galaxy held its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Humanity had delivered its message. The question now was whether anyone had truly heard it, whether the Krath would choose wisdom over pride, whether the Convergence would reconsider their abandonment of a species that had just proven far more dangerous than anyone imagined. The broadcast had ended, but its echoes would resonate across the stars for generations to come. Humanity had announced itself not as supplicants begging for acceptance, but as survivors who would fight for their place in the cosmos with every weapon at their disposal. The war had not yet begun, but the galaxy would never look at humans the same way again.